Hello and welcome to The Birth of a New Dimension. So this is not merely an abstraction or an intellectual exercise. This is an actual experience. That's why I call it birth process that we are going through. And the birth process is the seamless integration of the formerly divergent realms of spirit or energy or pure consciousness and matter. Brief pause. The tool or the pathway to be able to accomplish this amazing feat is a creation of mine called the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So thank you for tuning in. I appreciate so much people that come here every week and listen to the flapping of my moving mouth parts. And if you're new, that's why I always do these little explanations right here in the beginning. What is the Flying Rainbow Lasagna? It is not in any way associated with the flying spaghetti monster. It is a light-hearted word for a very profound concept, and the concept is a shape. So much like Mobius, the mathematician invented the Mobius shape, I invented the Flying Rainbow Lasagna shape, and it has a lot in common with the Mobius shape, Mobius strip rather, in that it represents the integration of two surfaces. So in a Mobius strip, you have one, it could be a strip of paper or wood or anything flexible with one twist in it with the ends then joined together. And what's magical about it is that it only has one surface. It only has one edge. If you followed it around with your fingertip, you would see that there's one edge that goes from the left to the right, but you never take your finger off the edge. So it's seemingly an impossible shape, but clearly it's not impossible. It exists. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna is coming from a similar direction. It is a seemingly impossible shape, but clearly it exists, so it's not impossible. And that impossibility represents non-duality, or the bringing together of formerly divergent realms, things that were formerly in opposition. And we do that, ironically enough, by taking the singularity, which is that convergence point at the center of all of these chakra or spinning energy center shapes, and vibrating it or oscillating it in a higher dimension so that it has at least two different positions. But two is just the minimum number. It could have many, many different positions. So the superpositioning of the singularity does not actually yield a duality or a multiplicity. That's good. The singularity by definition must be single. What it does do is stretch the fabric of space-time and consciousness so that the inside and the outside can now communicate. That's what I mean by seamlessly integrate formerly divergent realms. Aurora, why does this matter? Why should I expend great effort in trying to become a genetic virtuoso and actually practice this with my own DNA? And the answer is, when you achieve an additional dimension, you also achieve an additional degree of freedom. You will have more freedom, more things you can do with your consciousness, more things you can do with time, or more ways you can experience time. That you actually get to have more freedom by doing this. So it is definitely a beneficial new dance movement for your DNA. So this is also backstory for anyone who's new. It's repeat. For anyone who comes all the time, it's repeat. But for anyone who's new, this is essential backstory that your DNA, your chromosomes, are not flat or static or inert objects, that they are living, they are alive, they express consciousness, and the way that they express consciousness is by dancing or vibrating. I'm not at my piano today. I'm happy to report that it is a beautiful day with lots of sunshine, and I've been doing my version of photosynthesis where I absorb sunshine directly and use it in order to fuel the physical protein structure and the vitality and consciousness structure of my body. So that's why my voice sounds so good and I feel so happy and energized. And also it's why I'm not at my piano. So if I were at my piano, I would play some notes and I would say, these notes are the direct result of vibrating strings. So out here, the vibrating strings are my vocal cords. La la la. But we understand that vibrating strings make organized sound waves, and we define organized sound waves as music, harmonious music, as opposed to noise. And there's plenty of noise in the background. You could probably hear the wind or, something clanking around out here. Noise is disorganized or non-harmonious sound waves. So our DNA is part of the symphony of life, and the music that the vibrating strings of our DNA produces is integrating with all of the other life forms that are around, and not just right now, but that have been around in the past and will be around in the future. And I'm not just speaking about humans, I'm speaking about the entire biosphere, everything, because humans wouldn't be able to effectively live and eat food if it were not for the microbiome. All of the tiny micro one-celled organisms that live like inside of your digestive tract and also lining the surface of your skin. I say this every week. There's 50 different types of fungi that live on my big toe alone. Science literally did a survey of people's big toes to find out how many fungi live on your big toe. And there's even more that live on the heel of your foot. 90 different varieties live on the heel of your foot. And that's why right now with me sitting barefoot in my garden, I am seamlessly integrated with the planet upon which I stand. I'm not a separate structure. So this is the whole idea. Humanity thinks, oh, I'll put my body inside of a metallic spacesuit, put it inside of a tin can, fill up some toothpaste tubes with food, and shoot this body out into space, and then it will be sustained off of the planet. It's just a totally backwards or ridiculous approach to space travel, because we are so intimately connected to and integrated with the thought structure of this planet and the dream of this planet and all of the life, all of the consciousnesses that live on this planet that support and entwine with our own consciousness. We also have to integrate with the plant realm. I joke that I am photosynthetic, but it's really not that far from the truth. And the plant realm is, ingesting the beautiful oxygen that the animal realm is emitting. We're in this beautiful, balanced form of mutual benefit here in this world. So the idea of taking yourself as one individuated cell from this planetary structure, putting it in the tin can and shooting it off into the atmosphere until it, goes somewhere else is a ridiculous idea. That the way that real experts do star travel is through cultivation of consciousness. So I'm giving you all of these ideas in order to inform and empower you, and to tell you that you do not have to get together a lot of money like Elon Musk or Bill Gates or Stephen Hawking or, big famous characters like that. First, how do you get into space? Step one, become a billionaire. And join together with all these other billionaires, get together with that guy from Virgin Galactic and whatever, and then say, we're all going to put food into toothpaste tubes and shoot ourselves up in a big metal rocket. That is not how experts do star travel. I'm happy to report to you that you don't need anything or anyone other than your birthday suit. What you came here with your consciousness and your birthday suit. But actually, you do require integrating with the planet and with other people. So I don't mean to say you do it like a lone, like a hawk flying across the sky. Hawks don't fly in formation, but Canada geese, they fly in formation, or a susurration of sparrows or something like that. Just like your body is not just a one-celled organism, it's made of trillions of cells that all work together and have cell specialization. When experts do star travel, experts join together many different consciousnesses, which all have specialization. The heart cell acts differently than the bone or blood cell, but they all work together in the body. So the way that you get off the planet is by, first of all, cultivating your consciousness to the point where you no longer require intermediaries to be photosynthetic for you. Like, you can be your own chloroplast. You can be your own apparatus that connects directly to the emitter of photons, the sun and the stellar network, and ingest those photons directly. That you don't have to have a leaf of a plant catch the photons and then turn it into a starch or a sugar, and then you eat the starch, or an animal eats the starch and you eat the animal. We don't need to do that. This is returning to our original intended format before the genetic degradation that happened between 10 and 20,000 years ago. All repetition for people who tune in every week. I talk about this all the time. Brief pause. We used to have a sophisticated antediluvian, meaning pre-flood, worldwide culture here on this planet, and we were connected with all of the other life on this planet and life that exists in far divergent places. And the places are not just localities, they're also times or other realms. We were sophisticated in the sense that we were connected to all of these different places and consciousnesses, as opposed to our present state where we are encapsulated or quarantined or stuck in a petri dish, not effectively talking with all of these other forms of consciousness, or let's say consciousness that is moving at a different rate, consciousness that is coming from a different direction. So I also ascribe to the idea that there is only one photon. This is coming from the physicist Richard Feynman, even though it's my own, particular flavor, but he was a brilliant physicist, and he had the idea that there's only one photon that is constantly being emitted from the sun and the stellar network and moving forward through time and then moving backwards through time and endlessly embroidering what we would call, the embroidery of the experience of time. And that's very close to what I really feel is happening, that we are in this very, very large refinery of consciousness, and that there is really only one experiencer to this refinement process, and not we are each representing, each one of us as individual sparks of consciousness are representing the different levels of refinement that have happened to those little or that little spark of awareness as it is flying through time and space on its journey. So at this point, if I were doing a webinar, or if you were in my studio, I would take out a little pencil, I would draw the time vortex, I would draw my little diagrammatical shorthand that I use to represent the membranes of death, which are flowing membranes, and the timelines that all terminate on the membranes of death, and the little tiny aperture or wormhole that represent the path of least likelihood, the way that we can get out of this level of reality, instead of having to circulate around almost endlessly, seemingly endlessly, many, many, many times, very much like that brilliant and comedic movie, Groundhog's Day, Bill Murray, where he's circulating around within one 24-hour period and reliving it over and over until, through trial and error, he manages to find the correct combination of thoughts and ideas and experiences that let him transcend that experience. Well, humanity has been doing something very similar within each incarnation. So you're born as a tiny child, and then almost immediately you die. You die from pathogens or, mucomium being sucked into your lungs, or not being able to even integrate life into this body. I don't know if anyone even realizes the great unlikelihood of correctly gestating and being born and then transferring your consciousness into the body. That first, explosive breath of life and the baby crying. It's a very challenging thing to do, and not everybody does it the first time. And if you don't do it, you hit the membrane of death, and then you circulate back around to the beginning and try it again. And each time you try it, you try a different set of approaches or characteristics and live a little bit longer each time. And this is how we learn to navigate the time field, through trial and error. And we do this more and more, and you learn how not to get dropped on your head, and you learn how not to fall down the stairs. And eventually, the learning curve improves as we become verbal. As you learn to speak, as you learn language, and you can effectively communicate your thoughts and ideas with other people, and as you become literate and you could read signs, like if there's a sign that says poison, do not drink, and you can read, then that improves your capacity to navigate through the time field and effectively avoid things that will kill you, right? And so if you are an adult, 18 years or older, congratulations, pat yourself on the back, because you've done this journey so many, many, many times, but it has brought you to this moment right now where you have successfully avoided hitting the membrane of death to the point of your current age. And that membrane has a tiny little aperture. It's at the pointy end of the time vortex. And that's where you don't actually hit the membrane, but you return to the singularity. So the singularity is the source and the destination for our journey of consciousness into time. That we come from a time experience of timelessness, the zeroth dimension. It's the overlapping consciousness and possibilities and probabilities of anything and everything. It's the place of ultimate unlikelihood. When we stretch the fabric of time, space, and consciousness infinitely to that little pointy point, that's what we get. It's very similar to science's definition of the singularity, where basically the rules of reality break down because everything has been stretched out so much. And it's also analogous to if you fall into a black hole, science describes you as becoming spaghettified. These are light-hearted words to describe profound concepts. Imagine if your toes start to be stretched out into a thin line and the rest of you follows. This is what it's like to be drawn into a black hole according to science. Spaghettification as you are sucked into the singularity. Well, back to this idea of what the flying rainbow lasagna is. It is an oscillation of the singularity into two or more positions, and when it's in those different positions, it has different characteristics. Just like my right eye and my left eye perceive reality from two slightly different viewpoints. So, energy and entropy, these are two slightly different viewpoints. Energy being totality, all light, all consciousness, all possibilities, all probabilities, everything that is and everything that can possibly ever exist, potentiality. And then there is non-existence or unbeing, lack of awareness, darkness, lack of motion. If total energy is total motion, everything moving, like jumping around at very, very fast rates, then frozenness or lack of movement is entropy. And there is a balance between these two states, and these two states both represent unity consciousness. So this gets pretty heavy in the science, and I'm not a science person. If you're new to my broadcasts and who I am a galactic abstraction, and I came into this body when the previous owner-occupant of this body was destroyed in a satanic sacrifice. And satanic meaning this dark magic technology that is a distortion of the time field, hijacking of the natural dance of DNA. It's murder. It's not just murder, this is like analogous to oxen or doves or, goats being sacrificed at a temple for religious purposes. And it was a non-physical form of sacrifice. So a directed energy weapon and psychic attack, not the same as a knife being stuck into my brain, but it caused brain damage nonetheless. That's what caused the death of the previous occupant, this brain injury. And then it is also what allowed the opportunity for me as a galactic abstraction. So I also like to say, I don't usually have a body with a face and two eyes and a mouth and two arms and two legs. This is quite a novelty for me, and I had to learn all about that food is necessary. I came into this body and I tried to eat pure light in the first, couple of months that I was here. Oh my goodness. So I had to learn through trial and error that was not enough, that solid food was actually necessary. And then I had to learn about the constituent elements of solid food. What is nutrition? That took a long time also. It's been a long journey. And when I first came here, I was not well integrated into this body, like a hand that is not really well integrated into a glove. It took me many, many years. It's still an ongoing process. And also, I have had neurological artifacts, like the damage that happened to the actual cells of the organic computer, the brain of this body, that I've been learning to overcome that. And neuroplasticity is a good word for this. And also, I do magical calculations that are not even based in this reality. If we're thinking of using higher dimensional forms of anatomy, I would say that's what I really do. I'm drawing upon a different, higher form of myself in order to organize my thought structure, not merely using my physical, organic container. So I bring all of this up not merely to share personal aspects of my journey. I hope that it's inspiring to anyone else who might have had a brain injury or might be coming back from, any kind of car accident or anything that can happen like that. The idea that you can transcend those limitations and difficulties, but also this is the provenance or the backstory as to where the flying rainbow lasagna comes from. Why was it necessary for it to be created? Yes, necessity is the mother of invention. Yes, I created the flying rainbow lasagna because the other two options were to either be co-opted by evil, like have an evil non-terrestrial being take over mind, body, and spirit and soul and live within this body. That was not an option. I was not going to have that happen. Or death. Death was the other option, and neither of them were appealing options to me. And I'll also tell you, I'm not the first person, or the previous occupant of this body was not the first person to ever be attacked in this way. Oh, no, there are a lot of people that have been psychically attacked, and a lot of them end up, just being murdered, and it might appear that they had, a stroke or an aneurysm or something, a seizure, that they, suddenly fell down, and that they simply died overnight, or, had brain swelling or something like that. There are also some people who are co-opted, where they have a massive overnight personality change, and it's not for the better, and it's because of this satanic, meaning a space race that uses technology of hijacking consciousness and hijacking the natural behavior or dance of DNA in order to distort the living time field. I know, I'm not a biblical literalist. When I use these terms, I've realized I have to explain and describe myself in excruciating detail to set myself apart from the biblical literalists of this time. So, although I might use the word Christ consciousness, I'm also not a member of the New Age community. I've found out that some people, it's very hard to use language and find language that is that does not have unsavory associations, and to be impeccable in this time and place. It's very challenging. So when I speak about Christ consciousness, I'm speaking about an abstract network of consciousness, just like the internet is an abstract network, and it is comprised of the people that are on that network. So whoever's connected to the internet makes up the internet. And the Christ Consciousness Network is not only for Christians. It is literally an aperture. This is a part of your energy body. The place on your forehead that intersects with the place on the crown or the top of your skull that allows you to see through time. It's part of our higher faculties. So right now, according to the present human format, being able to see through time is superhuman, but being able to see through time or use your higher faculties is actually intended to be the natural part of your mind and your perception. So I'm trying to say, I'll say it again, not just for superhumans. So it's not just looking through your third eye is not just for Christians. It's not just for people who associate with the Christian religion or biblical literalism. And it's also not just for people that spend their whole entire lives sitting cross-legged on a mountain and meditating. Like, this is really meant to be a basic part of our equipment. If I made a car, you would think I was insane if I didn't actually have a windshield on the car that you could look through and see where you are driving. And yet, it is considered normal and natural in this time and place that humanity would be assembled at the great factory without the capacity to see through your windshield, like not knowing where you are going, where you are driving down the road. That is accepted as normal. That is totally not normal. So I'm getting through to you here. Death is an aberration. When I say aberration, like a socially aberrant behavior, a thing that's not supposed to exist. And it's because you can't see through your windshield, you crash into the membrane of death. We're supposed to all be able to see through our windshield and see what's coming in the future. So in this time and place, people get paid big money for predicting the future. It might be like stock market analysts, or it might be people with a crystal ball, or it might be, prognosticators. Like, you get a reading, a personal reading, someone who you pay them a bunch of money and they tell you who you were in a past life, and then they also tell you what's going to happen in your future. And that is, not only is that totally unethical and inappropriate, but you're all supposed to be able to do that for yourselves. Everybody's supposed to have their own inner eye, and it is part of your own learning process about yourself to read the chapters of who you were in a past life. I'll also interrupt myself here in order to say I will happily save you all a whole bunch of money. Instead of going to some prognosticator, reader that tells you who you were in a past life, I save you a bunch of money. You were everyone. This is the idea of the single photon endlessly embroidering forward and backwards through time. We all have been everyone. I have been all of you. Isn't that amazing? It's even more profound if we are in each other's presence, like if we're actually in a room together and we're actually talking about this idea, and if we say, I have been all of you. I lived all of your lives. I'm living all of your lives concurrently. If one really embodies that notion, if we all really embodied that notion, our approach to life would be profoundly different, because I really would recognize that all of your individuated stories are my collective story. I don't want any of you to get in a car accident, because that means I get in a car accident. I want all of you to have the best mates, have the best health, have the best, jobs or sources of income. I want everybody to be happy, healthy, and abundant in exactly the right place, doing what they love, because you're all me. I don't want you to work at jobs that you hate, in order to support a system that is unhealthy so that I can live in a golden house surrounded by a moat. No, of course not. That would not be ideal, because that means the aspects of my own self all have to be diminished and degraded in order for one little portion of myself to be happy and fulfilled. And I even dilate my identity to include those occupiers of the interstices that have a tiny spark of consciousness, and then, the rest, many, many layers of fat and distortion on top of it. At the core of those demons or occupiers of the interstice, there's a tiny, tiny spark of consciousness. So it's not like, let's just flush them all, let's just kill, mutilate, destroy, get rid of them. I recognize that those are aspects of divinity. This whole entire overarching structure. This is the basic question. Theology and cosmology. Little babies, little children ask, Mommy, Daddy, if God is good, how come God created evil? How can good and evil both be subsets of God? So if we look at God as this overarching structure, like the great music, the musical score of the cosmos, how can we have these consciousnesses that are like a tiny little spark of consciousness with lots and lots of fat and flab, the fatty deposits, the turds that circle the bowl and refuse to flush? They are not being sucked into the center of a black hole and being spaghettified. They are endlessly smearing around the edge, smearing around the event horizon, like the turds that circle the bowl of the toilet and refuse to actually go down. What do we do with these turds? Because this is the whole point. In a household, if you've ever been in a household with a little infant, sad little baby that's not doing well or whatever, if that baby's crying, everybody in the household is unhappy. That infant will scream at the top of its lungs. It's got a poopy diaper. No one's going to be happy and have a good restful night's sleep until we take care of the poopy diaper of that infant. This is what the occupiers of the interstices are like. And I use these analogies intentionally, the turds circling and the poopy diaper, because they are really the overlords of humanity, and they have even programmed in a tendency for humans to worship and adore them. Don't be impressed by them. Don't worship and adore them. Don't be impressed by their technology. They are really infants of consciousness. And when I say that, I mean that they don't have the emotional maturity. They're all about me, 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 and I have a poopy diaper, and everybody's going to be miserable until I'm happy. So this is the whole point. They've been making our entire planet miserable for about the past 10 or 20,000 years. They're stuck on the interstices. They're feeding off of the living. They're siphoning off and distorting the time field. And nobody's going to be happy until we change this poopy diaper. So let's do it. And the way that we do it is flying rainbow lasagna. So this flying rainbow lasagna is my solution. It's like a math proof. Brief pause. In a math proof, what you have are a series of rational statements. Like this, number 1 is true, number 2 is true, 3 is true, and 4 is true. And if 1, 2, 3, and 4 is true, then what must be true as the 5th rational statement? And statement number 5 cannot come into conflict with any of the previously established truths. So if we look at our world, I know I describe it as being like a musical score and everything is harmonically integrated. It's also like a math problem, where we say we have all of these different levels of consciousness. They are moving at different rates or different speeds and in different directions. What is the solution to this proof? How do we make everything harmonically integrated? How do we move things around so that everything is where it's supposed to be, so that nobody has a poopy diaper, so that everybody is happy and safe and comfortable? And there's not been a solution to this up until October 8th of 2001. That's the day that I invented the flying rainbow lasagna. And I bring it up again. This is not only so that I can say, I'm so great. I mean, it's wonderful to say that your achievements are great, but it is also to say, because there are rational questions here. How come this hasn't been done up until this point? Because this wasn't invented up until this point. Now that it is invented, this can be applied. So I bring up the exact date that it happened so that you understand on that day everything changed. It's like saying not like saying, it is exactly saying a new option was invented or created. Up until that point, you had options. You could have chocolate ice cream, vanilla ice cream, strawberry ice cream, but you couldn't have flying rainbow lasagna flavored ice cream. On that day, a new flavor was invented. Now you can have flying rainbow lasagna ice cream, and this flying rainbow lasagna is the solution, and it does not come into conflict with any of the other established foundation level truths. So it means we have that singularity as a basic foundation truth, and we have this time structure as another foundation truth. How do we get everybody happy without, like I say, cutting the fabric of space-time? We're not allowed to cut it. We're allowed to fold it and twist it and morph it, but not cut it. How do we make everybody happy? Well, the answer is to vibrate the singularity in a higher dimensional context. We are not making the singularity into a duality by doing this. It's still single by its definition. But what we're doing is creating different, I have used the word superpositions in this broadcast, qualities or behavioral characteristics or viewpoints when the singularity is in its different positions. So in one position, it is total energy and total awareness. And in one position, it is total lack of energy, or being frozen without movement and total lack of awareness. And that this allows different places or states of being or unbeing so that everybody can be happy. All of those fatty deposits that are stuck on the interstices, we now have a place for them to go. They don't have to be stuck on the interstices feeding off of the living anymore, because this has been their whole gig and their whole pity me, pathetic paradigm there. The whole idea, like, we have to do this. We don't have anything else to eat. We can't eat pure love. We have to siphon energy off of you, take what your loving energy, turn it into a degraded state, and then siphon it off in order to, take care of our own civilization. That was not, no creator, God, created their civilization like that. This is a big part of the backstory. It's like we painted ourselves into a corner and now we don't like the way that things are, and so this is why we're feeding off of you. So I, as a galactic abstraction, I'm like, oh, no, none of this will do. None of this nonsense is okay. And you don't just wave your magic wand from a higher dimensional state and expect to fix everything like from an outside point of view. In order to really heal things, it's necessary to be a first-person experiencer. Like if you want to affect the elections in France, you can't live in Australia. You got to move to France, become a citizen, get your right to vote in that country, and then vote or campaign for who you want to be president in that country. So if I don't live in this dimension, if I don't have a physical body here, then it's not appropriate for me to say, oh, I want to affect what's going on at that level of reality, even if I'm well-meaning. In order to affect life or consciousness or the flow of energy at this level of reality, the most appropriate thing for me to do is actually get a body. Actually get a body. Put your money where your mouth is. So that is what I did. I sensed the great unfairness of the ritual sacrifice of the occupant of this body. And I also sensed an opportunity where I could rectify the time field. Because when someone is being murdered, what's happening is all of their potential future years of existence are being siphoned off. If they're 27 and they could have lived to be, age 67, that's 40 years of life and creativity and activity and ideas and ingesting and excreting that aren't going to happen. Brief pause. So part of, my entry into this body is rectifying the time field, because the body is still alive. But it's not just that the body is alive, as an inert thing lying in a bed. That's not enough. The body talks, the body walks, the body has ideas, that this is all about this life. If you cut threads in the living embroidery of the time field, if you cut enough threads, the whole entire thing unravels, because all of these threads of life communicate with one another. Just like plants in a meadow. We have, the earthworms that are interacting, and the mycelium, the little tiny mushroom connective tissue at the root level that is transporting nitrogen and carbon, and the plants themselves, that these are all interactive with one another in order to support the experience of life. So if you start to get rid of earthworms, or if you start to get rid of microbes, or you start to get rid of mycelium, at a certain point, you have gotten rid of too many vital ingredients, and you no longer have all of the ingredients of the recipe that you need for life. And that's what happens if you kill off enough people, or if you kill off enough of just the right people. And it's not just like, we need to have this farmer. Farmer John needs to be alive so that he can farm all of this corn and feed it to the rest of the people. It's not just that simplistic. It can be, we need to keep Inventor John alive because Inventor John is going to create a new widget that is going to revitalize the economy or heal people's disease or whatever. It's, imagine if you cut certain crucial time threads, how that affects the time field. And so now when you begin to read about, like, one example is there was this brilliant computer programmer who was a 12-year-old girl in India, and she died suddenly of a seizure. This was like maybe 5 years ago, or within the past 5 years. I really sensed that was an attack on the time field. It wasn't just that this young person died, or that their family was sad, or that they wouldn't be there to, even procreation, they wouldn't be there to pass along their DNA structure and have a child, but that they had the capacity to revitalize humanity with new ideas and maybe write some computer program that would have changed the world, and instead they were destroyed, and that now they're not here, so now that computer program isn't here, so now we live in an impoverished world, in terms of impoverished with ideas that are no longer there. So I came into this body as part of healing and rectifying the time field, just keeping this body alive as part of it, and also sharing this idea of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is open source code for all of the DNA that's here, and not just DNA, because the planet is alive, and the planet, although we have DNA-bearing organisms that live on the planet herself is also conscious, and her consciousness is in, let's say, the flow of magma. It's in the mineral realm. The microbes that are at the level of the root system of plants, what they are doing is liberating tiny microscopic minerals. This is, like calcium or magnesium or phosphorus as plant food. If you don't have those tiny minerals liberated by the microbes, then the plants literally cannot live. So the mineral realm is also a part of consciousness that is flowing. So I'm trying to get across that the consciousness of our planet is not just in the plant and animal structure or DNA organisms. It's also in vibrating quartz crystals. It's also in the flow of magma, or the explosion of magma through volcanoes. It's in the flow of water, because water can be programmed to hold information or be a container for consciousness. So now we're starting to understand the Earth has a magnetic envelope, or an electromagnetic envelope called the magnetosphere, which is ordinarily shaped like a donut or a torus. And each one of us also has this time body, or non-physical body of pure consciousness that surrounds and interpenetrates our body. And it's also shaped like the magnetosphere. And we all exist, all planets, within the heliosphere, another giant torus or donut shape. And our DNA, when it is supercoiled at one point to the level of creating many little stacked up donuts, tori. Any place where you have a torus, you can vibrate it into a higher dimensional flying rainbow lasagna state. So that means you don't just have to have DNA in order to do the flying rainbow lasagna dance. It's a dance that our entire planet can do and is doing. The pole shift that we're presently experiencing is not just like north to south to north. Not just like a flipping around of heads to tails, tails to heads. It's not that. It is a turning inside out. And the turning inside out is a change in consciousness from integrating your inner realm with your outer realm. Got a plane flying overhead here. So this is about integrating your inner and your outer realm. So the interior realm, this is your thoughts and your dreams and your desires and your passions. And I'll also tell you that is the raw materials, the fifth dimensional and higher uncollapsed waveforms, the raw materials of it's prayer, essentially. When you are praying, you are emitting these raw materials that are eventually collapsed or solidified. I say collapsed, we collapse waveforms from their potential form into their experienced form through the act of observership. And this is like the ovens in front of your eyes that are baking the raw dough potential into experienced events. And we are divine miniature co-creators, and we're constantly baking the bread of reality with everything that we look at all around us. So when we transform on this profound inner level, when we begin to integrate our inner realm and our outer realm, we begin to consciously paint our reality around us instead of unconsciously creating it. For many years, for many thousands of years, humanity has been unconsciously creating or emitting this world. And we've been emitting a world that includes death, violence, rape, and disease. And I like to call these burnt cookies. These are not delicious cookies at all, and I'm not intentionally making them. Something else has taken the raw material, raw dough of my emissions, my passions, my prayers, and they degraded it and put it through commercial ovens and cooked it in a way that was not properly done, manifested into reality those waveforms and created a diminished level of reality. And that's the burnt cookies of reality, where we have babies that are born with brain cancer, we have war, we have rape, we have environmental degradation. None of this is part of the planetary dream or the original intention for how life and society would function and be organized on the surface of this planet. And everything that humanity is doing that is so unhealthy or diseased, it's not just affecting humanity, it's affecting the entire biosphere. It's affecting the blue whales that are slumbering at the depths of the ocean. Because think about all the sonic technology that our stupid military is deploying in terms of warfare and all of that. There's all sorts of disruptions that are happening. Like I'm trying to say, there's no peace. You can't even have a decent nap at the bottom depths of the ocean, big giant blue whales down there. I'm just trying to have a peaceful, restful float down here, and you guys are setting off all sorts of sonic weaponry that is disturbing me. This is what I'm trying to say. So all of the organisms on Earth, we're all in this together. We could also look at chemicals and radiation as affecting the entire biosphere, including the microbiome. All of this life is integrated, and all consciousness is integrated. This is what I talk about, the living time field. So it's not just life on our own planet. All consciousness is integrated, including at the galactic level of abstraction that I was experiencing before I was in this body. And what's happening on this planet was harmful and or insulting to my level of experience, not in this body and not on this planet, to the point where I said, it is worth intervening because something is going on that is not cool. These levels of uncoolness that are happening on this planet radiate outward and, drill downward into the foundation, and they affect everything. So the healing of this planet is necessary, and it's profound, and it's necessary for the entire structure. It's just like in the physical body. If you have an infection that is not properly tended to, then it spreads and it infects further, more cells, and it eventually can affect the entire organism and cause the entire organism to die. So what is happening on Earth's surface right now in terms of the infection of consciousness and the distortion of the time field through siphoning off, inner thoughts and desires and creating a distorted reality, that isn't just affecting this planet. It's not just affecting this solar system. It has affected many planets and many solar systems. We are just the most recent victims or experiencers. I don't usually like to use the word victim because it is a disempowering word. But what we really experienced was planetary rape, planetary abuse. So however you would say, we are a survivor. We are a planetary survivor of abuse, and we need to have healing. And just like in a family, if there is sexual abuse, the first thing, it has to be recognized. It has to be spoken about. It cannot be swept under the carpet and pretended that it's not there. So the practices of ritual sacrifice and sexual abuse have to be recognized and spoken about on our planet right now. These are the revelations known as Pizzagate or Pedogate, and this is also understanding that the practices that have been happening at high levels of our own government aren't new. They've been going on for over 5,000 or 6,000 years, all of recorded human history. But that doesn't justify them. It's just like saying that an infection has been going on for a very long time and it has now reached the proportions where the boil has to be lanced, this has to be cleansed, this has to be purged, otherwise it threatens the health of the entire organism. And the entire organism is the living time field. It's not just this little planet, even though this little planet is really important. It's not just the people or the threads of life that live on this planet. It begins to affect the entire embroidery. What goes back in time and what goes forward in time, we are all connected together. So who I was as a galactic abstraction was definitely and is still concurrently affected by the events on Earth, and that is why I intervened. Because people often ask me, like, why did you come here? Why are you in this body? Why did you do what you do? Why did you do what you have done, rather? So also, I didn't shop around. I didn't say, like, let me look to see, like, which is the optimum body that I can jump into. It was very spontaneous, and it had to do with an opportunity, like an aperture, like a little window of opportunity occurred, and I sensed it, and I also sensed what could happen by taking this opportunity, and without any more preparation than that, I dove in and I did it. And like I said, these are experiments or expressions of personal truth where you do it through your own body. You put your own body on the line. It's not just like here in this world, we're used to generals who make their pawns, their soldiers go into battle, and the general themselves is not risked. But when you get to higher levels, that's totally the opposite. The general themselves does the, performs the foray, sends out the bombs or does whatever they're trying to do. I'm not about the weapon, the language of war. You can tell I'm not about the language of war, but it is about being on the vanguard. If you really believe in something and you really want for it to happen, you don't delegate it to someone else. You do it yourself. You do it personally. So that is why I am here, personally invested in this body and personally creating this genetic transformation. And also it comes down to this. No one else can tell you what you do with your own body. No one else can say, hey, you aren't allowed to do that. So I can't force anyone to dance like a flying rainbow lasagna, but I can't say you're not allowed to. You're all allowed to. In fact, if someone tries to prevent you from doing it, you can kindly remind them, these are your own genes, it's your own DNA, it's your own body, it's your own innate connection to the time field. You can dance the way you want to dance. This is the basic, profound truth of reality. So this is just like we're in a symphony. Oh my goodness, if I were at my piano, I'd make some ugly music, because there are some people that are like, oh yeah, I'm in the symphony. I can play whatever I want. I can make ugly music. I can sound terrible. You can, of course. But the idea is if you do that, the cellular structure of your body breaks down and it leads to eventual death. That is the whole idea. But we have technology that is currently being utilized that people play very wrong notes and then they don't die because they are using technology to avoid death, even though they've made some very wrong notes. So what we are doing with our mind, I will never excruciatingly define all of the, what's wrong without giving you the solution. Here's the solution. How do we get out of the situation? Your own individual consciousness is a very powerful tool, and you don't need money or anyone else's permission to use it. So I'm trying to say you don't have to be born into a wealthy family or work hard and amass money in your 401k retirement savings plan, nor you don't need to get special property, you don't need to buy a magic elixir, you don't need to buy a magic wand. All you need to do is have the physical, organic, multicellular structure that you were born with, and have a mind, and have a heart, and have a connection to the planet, and have a connection to consciousness, or the stellar network, or, the sun and all of the stars that emanate our consciousness. That's all that you need. And you don't need my permission, even though you have my encouragement towards freedom. But you dance your DNA in your own unique pattern, and the flying rainbow lasagna is the tool that you use to rearrange into that new pattern. So I've also been getting across the idea of genetic encryption. with my iPad, to access any information on my computer, I have to put my thumbprint on my little sensor, and then it lets me access the information on that tablet. Each one of us needs to do genetic encryption, because up until this point, it's been an unencrypted free-for-all where anyone can speak into your mind and reach into your body and give you diseases and twist things around. It's not supposed to be that way. So these are the basics that we're taught, just like, we in this present time and place teach little children how to read and write and not to pick their nose in public. In another cultural landscape, we taught our children how to have genetic encryption so that nothing else could reach inside of you and, cause havoc. So this is what you need to do. How do I do it? A person recently asked me, how do I do genetic encryption? The answer is, it is just like the answer to, how do I lift my arm, or how do I wiggle my nose, or how do I wiggle my toes? It is through willpower and through intention and through trial and error and practice. So if anything that you learned how to do, if you ever went surfing, you learned how to surf, how did you do it? First, you saw that someone else could do it. Then you found out the equipment and the circumstances necessary to do it. And then you learned the intellectual steps to do it. And then you practiced it physically yourself. So I have explained to you the equipment that you need, your birthday suit, the intellectual steps to do it. Now you practice doing it yourself. And then you learn through trial and error, because when you're a surfer or a roller skater or learning to ride the bicycle, you fall over a lot and then you try again and you keep on making your attempts until you are successful, because it is your own individual journey. If someone else has learned how to ride a bicycle, they cannot just instantaneously transfer that knowledge to you. You learn by doing with your own body. This is the answer to any of these questions about becoming a genetic virtuoso. Your body is like your instrument, and you play music on your body. And just like an instrument, you have to practice in order to be good, to be a virtuoso. So if you are not instantaneously good, you don't throw away your instrument or smash your guitar on stage and say, it's broken. You say, wow, I need to practice in order for this instrument to sound good. Or maybe I need to tune my instrument in order to make this sound good. And you can definitely be inspired by other people. How did they tune their instruments? How do they play their instruments? But each of our instruments are unique, so each one of us has to find our unique approach to making music and harmoniously integrating with the rest of the symphony. And so also, this is why I don't give health readings to people. There are many good medical intuitives, so if you have a disease and you need to know about how to heal your disease, like you can contact them. But I don't tell other people, for example, if I tell them I eat bacon and eggs in the morning, I don't tell everybody to eat bacon and eggs in the morning. I don't pretend that it's a one-size-fits-all diet plan. I don't pretend that everybody needs to live their life like a cookie-cutter example of exactly what I do. No, not at all. It's just like saying some instruments in the symphony are the high-pitched piccolos, and some of them are the deep kettle drums, and everybody plays their own notes. So Flying Rainbow Lasagna does not in any way mean that I become your external authority figure and I tell you what notes to play or what to do. No, that's what I'm trying to say. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna is the tool that you use as an individual to be connected to the great musical score and the great composer, so that you don't have to listen to anybody else telling you what to play or when to play it. You know, on a deep, profound level of your own divine connection, what you're supposed to be doing with your body on a moment-to-moment basis. This is big because I learned when I came here that when you get a job to get money, you're not just selling your time, like $10 an hour. I give you 1 hour of my time and you will give me $10. It's not just that. You're actually selling the position and movement of your body. You have to be working in a factory. That means you have to be doing this with your body all day. I'm making a motion like, you're hammering something in a factory all day long. You're making that repetitive motion over and over all day. Or in some situations, it is what you think. You're not allowed to think your own thoughts. I actually had to learn this, that in some job situations, it is considered to be inappropriate for you to, let's say, envision music in your head or think your own thoughts or, play a game with your own mind, that you're supposed to be having your mind on the job. So now we're starting to understand you work for a boss, you work for an external authority figure. That means you move your arms and legs according to the instructions of your boss. You move your mind according to the instructions of your boss. And your boss is not God, is not a divine creature. Your boss is just somebody who works for the marketplace, for the capitalistic marketplace. So now we begin to understand how destructive this is. But it is considered normal. It is considered de rigueur, the way that people do it in this time and place. I had to learn, wow, this is the way that people do it in this time and place. This is not right at all. I'm envisioning that you might have laughed to yourself, imagining Aurora's fish out of water work experiences where I was, supposed to be keeping my mind on my task at work, and instead I was doing something else. I'll tell you what I ended up doing in my times when I have had jobs where I worked for a boss. It was based on output and not on what my mind was doing. So, for example, I worked as a custom framer, or I worked in other places where what mattered was my output, that I had to produce a certain number of, framed pieces, and that would fulfill the terms of my employment. And I could do whatever I wanted to do with my mind, or, I could sing while I worked or something like that. That was a form of employment that worked for me, but clearly I am not any longer a professional custom framer. I learned what life was like. In the first couple of years that I was here, I submerged into the unhealthy behavior patterns of this time and place so that I could learn what needed to be healed. Like, I fully submerged, analyzed the system, and then figured out what needed to be healed. And this is also speaks to my assertion that I am not a carpetbagger, or like some wealthy aristocrat that comes in from an outside realm and takes advantage of the weak or vulnerable people of this realm. That's not who and what I am. I'm very much in solidarity with all of you. I've had the same experiences of having to pay for my rent and pay for my health insurance and find food and all of those things, so that I also know in excruciating detail the challenges of being here. What do we need to do in order to fix it? And the answer is flying rainbow lasagna, because when you rearrange your DNA in this new format, or dance in this new format, your mind directly creates reality. Your mind directly paints reality. You don't need to use an intermediary like a Jesus Lord or a Jehovah Lord, where you say, I pray to you, external God, please make this blah blah better in life. You actually become empowered as the divine being on earth, embodied on earth in this realm, to make things better. And I will say to you that this assertion that this is not anti-religious or wrong or devilish or temptation, that this is what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be down here like little disempowered children sucking our thumbs saying, oh, I hope somebody comes along and saves us someday. We're actually supposed to be the heroes of the story, where we are like, you know something, I'm here for a purpose. I have muscles. I'm powerful. I'm rolling up my sleeves right this minute and I'm fixing things. I'm not sitting here sucking my thumb or rocking back and forth and saying, Jesus is coming, Jesus will save us, or whomever is the savior. I am saying, wow, I recognize that this is a very, pardon my French, fucked up system, and that we need to fix it. Nothing is better than there's no better way to sustain an unsustainable status quo than just tell all of the participants, oh, it's just about to change. If you just tell everyone, everything is just about to change, it's imminent. But what if I tell you that for 6,000 years? It's imminently just about to change. Everything is just about to get so much better. We're on the verge of this wonderful transformation. That is the best way to keep people disempowered, because they're like, oh, Messiah's going to come any day now, it's all going to get better. So the real answer is, we cannot live constantly on the verge with the expectation of an external authority figure, an external savior, that we were all created to have this divine connection and be able to paint the reality that we wish to experience. So flying rainbow lasagna is regaining your genetic virtuosity and gaining that paintbrush so you can paint reality. Start with your own body and then spiral outwards into all of society, the planet, the solar system, and the cosmos. Thank you for being on the journey with me.
Anti-Media Radio with your host Nick Burnaby here on UCY.tv.